This YouTube thing. Fascinating. What an interesting opportunity. New to me. And having just posted a video explaining what happened with respect to my not being on season 40, many comments referenced my not having explained or touched on anything that took place in All Stars. So that's what I'm going to try to do now. It's a broad, complicated in some ways story, and I hope you're able to follow, but I'll try to be succinct, I'll try to be clear. Let me start with season 1. In the original season of Survivor, I went into the show with a plan to win. And there are lots of things that went into that plan unfolding. Building an alliance was a big part of it. I decided to build alliance before the game even started, and I started to select who might be part of that alliance quite early. Sue Hawk was a part of that alliance. She wasn't someone upon whom I thought I could count kind of stably. I knew that early. Where Rudy was stable and consistent, and I could count on him. Sue Hawk was a loose cannon all the way through the show. And come the end of season 1, viewers were exposed to something pretty serious about who she was. But not too many people have referenced that. I don't hear a lot of discussion about it. When they were voting toward the end of the show as to who should win, Sue Hawk stood up to make the case to vote for me. Ironically, the case she was making was so angry and had such venom and was so laden with emotion and angst that even someone who had planned to vote for me switched their vote because they were bothered by the way in which Sue Hawk made the argument. If you were dying on the side of the road, Kelly, I wouldn't give you a drink of water. You know, you remember her voice. It was real. That was Sue. She was angry, 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 and had lost sight of the game and how interesting it was and wonderful that Kelly, a 22-year-old, had kind of maneuvered her way into second place. So she was really angry and felt betrayed, and it came out in this spewing of anger that no one really addressed in real terms. People laughed about it. Today, 20 years later, people still talk about the snake and rat speech. That's Sue Hawk. But it's reflective of her emotional instability. And that's kind of a sad thing, I think. But a deeper layer. CBS was privy to all of this. CBS's psychiatrists, CBS's producers, CBS's executives. People were making big decisions about what happens within the show. And they all decided to invite that back, that instability that is Sue Hawk, back onto the All-Star season. Between the end of the original Survivor that I won and the All-Stars, Sue had expressed to many of us very, very clearly that she was angry she didn't win, she figured she couldn't win, and she was going to do what she was able to do to extort CBS. And she did it in her own unique way, with sincerity. You knew that this person, unstable as you might have perceived her to be, believed the things she was saying and had this as a goal, but you just take it with a grain of salt because it's Sue Hawk and you go on. We film Survivor Season 8, the All-Star season, and during the season there was this challenge on which we were on balance beams. One complicated piece of the puzzle that people don't give too much thought to that they should is that what you saw of that challenge and what you see throughout the game is only what CBS decides you should see. People talk about editing a lot over the years, and what you see of me is me. It's real. It's unscripted drama for certain, but the choices as to which pieces of what you see are completely up to CBS. those folks behind the curtain. Jeff Probst probably contributes, Mark Burnett probably contributes as the executive producer. Who knows now that Jeff Probst is executive producer. I think things have changed, and I'll talk more about that a little bit later. Not for the good. But let's go back to season 8 before I get distracted. We're in this challenge, and we're on balance beams, and the challenge has an end to it. There's an exit where you are headed to get as quickly as you can to move on and be out of the challenge. Sue Hawk was there. She had gone through the challenge, had already gotten to the end, could have stepped off onto the platform. And literally out of the blue, in the oddest situation we'd seen, I'd never encountered it before, Sue turned around rather than completing the challenge and headed back on the balance beam toward me. Confused? Me. Wondering what's going on. What are you doing? Hands up. I had no idea what she was up to. None. Now, who am I? I'm this bold, kind of outspoken, gay, naked at the time guy playing a challenge, probably intentionally naked to keep people away from me or to give whatever level of discomfort might come from being around this fat naked guy. It's all part of the game for me, and obviously CBS allowed it. If it weren't allowed that I could be naked on the challenge, I wouldn't have been. Obviously, I followed all the rules of the game always and would continue to. So here she comes toward me in the challenge after having gone all the way to the exit. I don't know what she's doing. What are you doing? What do you want? Who knows what I said? I stood my ground. I never touched the woman, and the challenge went on. What you saw was the edited perspective that CBS wanted you to see. What we all saw later was very, very different. I never knew anything really traumatic or problematic even took place. I went on, the people at the challenge didn't know anything was really problematic, nothing. We went on, we played the rest of the day, we go on, I go to tribal council and I'm voted off. I never knew there was an issue of any kind at all until months later when the show aired. When the show aired, just before, the day before the show aired, CBS called me and explained what had happened and what had unfolded. I'd not been part of it, I'd not known it had happened, and I had to think about what on earth that meant. Eventually, we all were flown to California and sat and watched the footage. This is all together. Sue Hawk watched it with her attorney, I watched it with my husband and other people, the executives from CBS were there, everybody. We watched all the footage. Unedited, no blue dot. Sue Hawk turned around, intentionally instigated something. I never touched the woman with anything. All these comments in the media about I rubbed my dick on her. How dare you rub a... I never touched the woman in any way with any part of my body. Sue Hawk did touch me. Sue Hawk violated my space by coming back at me, and she touched me on the waist. But I never touched the woman, I didn't initiate the incident, and I've never sexually harassed anyone in the world, least of all a woman. If I were going to sexually harass someone, it would be a male. I'm gay. But anyway, the media behind this is driven by media manipulators who are professionals. Chris Ender is the head of that at CBS. He's been the head media manipulator since season 1. He was the head media manipulator during season 8, and he's been the head media manipulator all along and continues to be. And he spins media that you consume in a way that causes you to think, he hopes, as positively about CBS and the show's producers as is possible. There is utter and complete disregard for Sue, for me, for any of the participants on the show. They're uninterested in that. The reality is there was no sexual harassment that ever took place there. I have seen the footage afterwards where Sue in the morning came up and said, Jeff, he violated me, he this, he that, he the other thing. And I have some compassion for someone unstable enough to choose to react that way. It's sad. On the other hand, I'm the one who was violated. I'm the one who we know did not have anything to do with creating or concocting that incident. Even if Sue feels some of what she expressed feeling, it is not as a result of something I did. It is a result of something she did and a result of where her head was at the time for whatever reasons. Was she intentionally intending to extort CBS? Perhaps. Was she just so lost and so exhausted that she was misreading the world and really not able to continue in the game? I think that's likely. Regardless, I'm the one who's suffered as a result of the way in which CBS has portrayed the incident to you. They chose what to air. They've carefully, knowing all the facts behind it, knowing I did nothing, still chose to edit it in a way that had you wondering. That's the salacious part. You viewers, ooh, how can we get their attention? Well, the effects of that are significant, and they've lingered. And here we are, 16 years later from that incident, after CBS continues to do the same thing in their choices as to what you saw about last season, season 39. CBS is responsible for what you saw, what you think, what you believe might have happened. CBS knows what happened. They were there, all the producers, all the footage. They are the ones, not the contestants, Dan, any of the women who have the big whole picture. They aren't. The participants, aren't exposed to what's true with all of the information, but the producers and CBS are. So, here we sit. CBS, Jeff Probst particularly, and I'll talk about that now that he's an executive producer, choosing to scapegoat me, pull me from filming season 40, All Winners, because of the way they portrayed an incident that they know I had nothing to do with 16 years earlier. In between that time, I've been invited to play Heroes vs. Villains, Redemption Island. I've been invited back. They know that I am a lover of the game. I've never missed an episode. Survivor is a great game, but they also know I know who they are, who the producers are, who Jeff Probst is, who CBS is, and that what they care about is the almighty dollar, not about who we are. Jeff Probst particularly, specifically, did interviews multiple times, and you can go back and look at them, parade.com, many of them, talking about being grateful for who I am, thankful for what I did for the show Survivor. He thanked me for his being able to buy a home and to have a wife. These are specifics about what Jeff has really felt over the years. He talked about whether he didn't know if the show would continue or be as popular if it weren't for the way I played in the original season. That shift, that dramatic switch to now saying, Rich doesn't represent the show. You know, it's a family show. Be suspicious. Don't buy it. He's attempting to dupe you. Blatantly, Jeff is lying. Jeff is doing what I believe is the greatest disservice to the show yet. I think the show itself has suffered since Jeff has become executive producer in subtle ways, mostly related, I think, to his ego. Jeff thinks he understands the game, and even now, this week, has done interviews where he's talked about why the game's a success. that I believe aren't true. I think there are many other reasons why the show is a success that Jeff seems to be blatantly missing, but Jeff's not interested in input. I hate that you really shouldn't feel great about who Jeff Probst is or who CBS is, because I love Survivor. But that's reality. And to me, reality matters. One question people often have is, what would you do differently now? And it's really an odd question, because who I am is who I am, and of anyone that you've seen on Survivor, you're going to get the real me. You're getting what I'm thinking. I'm talking to the camera very, very openly, often, about what I'm going to do. And then I go into the game, and within the constraints of the game's rules and what's right and good, I do what I need to do in the game. But in reality, like outside the game, you look back at season 8, the All-Star season, and you say, what would you do differently in that challenge? Would you be naked in it? I don't know if my answer matters. I was naked. I chose to be naked because I thought it would give me some kind of an advantage in the game. If I weren't allowed to be naked, I wouldn't have been naked. If I actually thought being naked would harm or bother somebody beyond the game, remember, I had already spent 6 weeks with all of these people, most of these people. They'd all been aware that branding-wise, my branding was the naked guy from Survivor. They knew that that was a part of me. Season 8 was all stars. If I were perceived as trying to be somebody different from who I was, that would cause the other players, my competitors, to be skeptical, to kind of come at me in a different way, to not feel as if they can trust me. And part of the game of Survivor is moving forward in ways that you build some kinds of trust with people in order to get to the end. So being naked was almost necessary, a requirement for me to be who I was perceived to be by these other players. Complicated, I know. I hope you're following that. But would I do anything differently? If Sue Hawk were actually bothered to the extent that I could have, I would try to have avoided that. I don't know that I ever could, because I actually do believe, sadly, that the instability mentally that was happening there, from what, I don't know, how lifelong, was it the being back on the island, exhausted, no food, etc. I don't know what caused it, but for whatever reason, if she were somehow affected by anything I did, I would try not to do that. I don't have any desire to harm anyone. I never have. I've never been involved in any kind of sexual harassment or anything like that. I'm a compassionate guy. I'm a thinking guy. I'm a considerate human being who thinks about what it is they're doing in life and who longs to help those around him, not somebody who's out there to harm anyone. So, short answer, I don't think I could have done anything differently. But if I knew ahead of time that something I were doing would likely be harmful in some real meaningful way, I would likely not have done it. That said, there's this huge separation that complicates things between what happens in the game of Survivor, which you fans know is a very, very powerful and interesting thing, crazy, different environment, outwit, outlast, outplay, those are the guidelines, and in real life. And there are many things I do in the game that I wouldn't do in real life, and I do them proudly. People think, oh, it's just your games, you're just saying that's not you. Well, no, it's not me in real life, but it is me playing the game, and I don't apologize for it when I lie, when I confuse you, when I start trouble, when I intentionally influence others, you could call it manipulating, in order to benefit me, in order to get me to the end in the show. That's one of the best, most interesting dynamics of Survivor. Can you make that separation? And in fact, over the years, as people have been unable to make that separation, and they've brought real life into it, being mean-spirited and angry, and maybe even threatening physical violence, that's way off. That's wrong. That's just out. I don't have any respect for those who bring the real life into the game. In season 8, when I was voted out, oh man, congrats to you. Stupid decision to the folks who voted me out, and I explained why. But ooh, I've been bamboozled. I was bamboozled. I shouldn't have been voted out. I did what I could to prevent myself from being voted out, and they beat me. They voted me out. I'm not angry at them. I didn't react in ways that you've seen people do on the show. I wasn't so caught up in my emotions about wanting to win that I couldn't see the reality that it's a game and I was outsmarted by other players. That's what happened. I was happy for them while still being frustrated that I didn't get further than I got in the All-Star version. But that's part of my being rational and reasonable. Understanding the game, I wanted to play it. I loved the game just as much as they did. Why should I be angry at them for having done what they needed to do and having been successful when I got snuffed? Anyway, that's something you guys have to gauge. You have to figure out who it is that is most likely, most reasonable. And if you want more information, you should seek it. The trouble comes when you've come to some kind of understanding or belief from watching one edited version, then all of a sudden your confidence is so high you can spew things and information and commentary and make choices and decisions and come to an opinion that's so solid and so certain when it shouldn't be if you don't have more information, that you then are stupid. And so often you'll hear me talking about people who are stupid versus people who are ignorant. Ignorance is rampant. We are all ignorant of many things. We are unaware, we don't have enough facts, that's ignorance. When our confidence is so solidified without the facts, without the information, that we can then talk about knowing things. I know this and I know that and you're this and you're that. That's stupidity. And I'll call you out on it if I think you're stupid. Feel free to disagree and think I'm stupid. I'm happy to engage in the conversation around that.